Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining the Christianpreneurs Podcast. We have a special guest. All my guests are special, but this one is extra special. And the next one is going to be even more extra special. We have the lovely Keshia Aikins. And I stumbled on Keshia's profile on Instagram, and I saw this big sign that said, "Branding God's Way." And I was like, I just have to know about that, and the listeners have to know about that. So I invited Keshia on, and thank you so much, Keshia, for taking the time to speak with us today.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So Keshia is an avid believer that God uses creativity as an avenue of healing for all of us. From the young age of 4, she has been actively involved in various creative arenas such as dance, art, drama, and poetry. Her latest creative endeavor includes being the founder of Boxbreaker LLC, a faith-based company that provides marketing, branding, strategic direction, and website design for visionaries ready to brand God's way. Keshia has 11 years of experience in marketing and project management for corporate and nonprofit sectors, and 10 years of ministry experience to serve others as best as possible. She educates faith-based visionaries on how to clearly organize and communicate their vision to develop sustainability. She finds her passion most comes alive when she sees a visionary who is ready to break the box of fear and comfort and run with their vision wholeheartedly. Keshia attributes all that she is today to the healing power of Jesus Christ. Amen. And echoes to you that you cannot achieve great things without being tested greatly. So I was highly inspired after reading your bio as well. And one of the first things that stuck out to me was where you talk about, well, before we go into that, I'm going to let you actually tell us about, your official title in your business and what you do.
Okay, awesome. So I am the founder or the CEO of Boxbreaker LLC. Also by trade, just doing branding and marketing. So branding and marketing educator, as well as creative director for faith-based brands.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what stuck out for me in your bio is where you talk about being an avid believer that God uses creativity as an avenue of healing for all of us. So using creativity as an avenue of healing. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, I can. So, like I said in my bio, from the tender age of 4, just being involved in different creative outlets. And I started a mime ministry almost 10 years ago, Point and Praise Mime. And through that avenue, the Lord really just showed me that, whatever he has called us to create, whether it's dance, whether we're doing branding, whether it's photography, videography, that it has the answer to what someone else needs. And in that, of course, healing comes forth, right? Because you don't know what else someone needs from what it is that you do, the gifts that God has given you. And, for me, through dance, just really seeing the power of movement. And now I'm in branding, so it's the power of graphics and wording, and strategy. But ultimately, all circling back to whatever we deliver is an answer for someone else. And it can ultimately be a healer for them, whatever area they are in, whether it's spiritual, emotional, financial, business-wise, but ultimately just providing answers for what they need.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I don't know if you're familiar with Marie Forleo.
Yes.
She has this saying that, the world needs a special gift that only you have. And it kind of sounds like that to me, like we all have gifts that God has given us to use unto the world. And if we're holding that back, we're holding somebody else back. We're kind of like the block or the barrier between somebody else getting to achieve what they want to achieve or do what they want to do. So that's awesome. So what can you tell us about, just kind of still on the creative healing? What can you tell us in your experience, how that's played out, even with your clients, for yourself and with your clients? What does that look like?
Yes, great question. So what that looks like, particularly one client comes to mind, and we started her brand 2 years ago. And with her brand, we've been able to brand her to tell her story. She has experienced foster care, adoption, molestation and certain things that were very near and dear to her heart. And so with the branding of that and being able to put out her website and build confidence in her, telling her story in a way that is very authentic, but also able to really touch on those hard parts of her life. And so seeing that healing come alive has been transformative into where now, of course, she's getting more speaking engagements, but most importantly, people are coming to her as to be a mentee, to say to her, hey, I've experienced the same things that you've experienced, how can I get through this? And so we've been able to see that through the branding and through her just, of course, saying yes to God and telling her story, that many women have come to her and been able to receive prayer, receive spiritual guidance, and able to give their lives to Christ. And she's been able to aid and give them like items that they need, do fundraisers for them, all because we decided to step out on faith and brand her story. So that's one avenue that comes out, and as just the first example that comes to my mind.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's like a trickle down effect. As you released her and got her free into her brand, now she's able to help others, and that's really what it's all about. For me, that's what branding is all about. Once I can get you to tell your story, and it's gonna open up other people to tell their stories, where they're gonna feel, like they can release their vulnerability and be transparent and share what they have. It's really like a freedom type thing,
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's where the box breaker comes in, because it's helping faith-based visionaries break out of the box, whether it's fear, whether it's comfort, whether some of them are this is their first time doing anything, outside of their family, whether they're first generational business owners or, they've been boxed in all their lives to say, hey, don't tell that part of your story, and so that's where box breaker comes into play with doing that and giving that creative freedom, but of course, obviously I had to experience it first. So we're just letting the story continue.
Yeah. So what has made you so passionate about branding?
Good question. So I think that has come with, it started off as a skill. I went to school for marketing. I got my bachelor's degree in marketing. I said, I'm going to be this exec. I'm going to work at Google. Like, I'm just going to coast. Okay. I'm just going to do marketing for one of the big companies. And it started off as a skill and it turned into a grace. And I believe that when God calls you to do something, that he gives you the grace to actually carry it out. And so I had a full-time job for 10 years and I was over marketing and fundraising, but I didn't say I wanted to have my own company. I just said I would like to sit at the big chair and I'll do it for you guys. And so fast forward a couple of years ago, a couple of my friends were starting businesses and they're like, hey, can you take a look at this? Or, hey, you want to design my website? Hey, you want to do a brochure? And I'm like, I guess I do have the marketing degree, but it was still at that time a skill, not a grace or not even a burden yet. And so what has made me so passionate is from the time that I actually said yes and worked on my first website to see that God literally coached me through what it's supposed to look like, where the text is supposed to go. This is her brand. How are we going to get it out there? And I'm like, Lord, I've never seen this side of this creative gift. I went to school for it, but it didn't come out until I really started working with other people and being able to articulate and creatively illustrate what they were doing. And so it became a passion because from one client to the next client to the next client, God showed me very quickly that this is not same thing that you just said. This is not about you branding and marketing and, making six figures. This is about you helping my people to be released from bondage and fear and to really go forward in the vision that I have given them. And so my passion still to this day comes alive when I'm on the phone with a client and they're like, hey, I know what the Lord has called me to do. And I'm like, you do? Let's go. Because there's nothing more, there's nothing more that clicks more than that. We all go through our phase where we don't know, we're not sure, we have so many ideas, but that's where my passion comes alive, when I see people answering the call that God has really released them and called them to do. So
yeah, I love that. It's really a freeing moment. It's similar to when I hear people say that they lost their job. I actually get very excited for them because I'm like, well, what does God have in store for you? It's dig deep. What are you passionate about? What is it that you wanted to do all your life that you're not doing? So it's this feeling that you get that, wow, here's somebody who God is about to free them. It feels really, really good.
Yes.
What is the difference between branding God's way and regular everyday branding?
Got it. So branding God's way is specifically for the entrepreneur or the vision who is ready to submit the vision to God and continuously check in with God and ask God, what does he think about this idea? How should you set up your marketing? Is this an idea that you're doing because you need to pay a bill, or is this an idea you're doing because I called you to do it? And so it's relying on God 100% for strategy, for spiritual insight, for direction, for bringing you clients, for networking, right? Just relying fully on him for the direction. And then, of course, you got to do the work, because that's a whole nother misconception. But because once God provides it, we have to do the work. But regular branding, it's just I've jumped on tons of webinars in my day, and a lot of them are fueled by how to make 10K in a day, or how to, have the most clients you've ever had. And for me as an entrepreneur, I believe that God has called us into wealth. He's called us to be financially free. At the same time, that's not his end goal, where you're just serving people all the time just to make money. Like, ultimately, there is, like we just said, there is a freedom that comes. There's healing that's going to come. There is people, getting released from things that he wants them to be released from. So I believe that what God has given you, again, is the answer to what someone else needs. And that godly entrepreneur, that Christian entrepreneur, is going to recognize that and understand that I can't move just how anybody moves. I can't move off of money. I have to move by what my burden is and what my grace is and the direction of God. Because there's been times for me where I'm like, Lord, did you see my account? All right, so let's do a quick sell. Okay, I'm gonna do 5 websites this month.
Yeah,
and it's because I have a husband, and he's gonna ask me, what did you do this month?
Yeah.
And the Lord has repeatedly said, like, no, be still. No, don't do that fast Instagram post that says, hey, I'm doing 50% off websites. And it never fails. Every single time he comes through with either a client right after that's like, hey, I've been wanting to reach out to you. I just didn't. Or, hey, the Lord told me to give you extra money. And I'm like, what in the world? So It's really, that's where the whole branding God's way comes in, because we can't be, I read Galatians this morning, we can't be people commissioned. We have to be God commissioned. So that's where the whole foundation comes from.
I am so happy you brought that to light, because so many times it's all about the dollar. You don't know how many clients I've worked with who are, they come to you today and they need to make thousands of dollars by tomorrow. They need to be on the Oprah Winfrey show by next week. And it's like, whoa, that is not how branding works. Branding is actually a lifelong process. It's something that you'll never come to the end of it. As long as you are evolving as a person, your brand is always going to be evolving. So it's not about making that quick dollar. I'm not struggling with that anymore. From 2020 for the next decade, I'm not struggling with that anymore. I'm going to be totally honest with clients and say, listen, we're not here to make money. We're here to build a brand.
Yes, you and me both.
Yeah.
I always tell my clients, I say, well, if that's your goal, I'm not the one for you, but I can recommend other people.
Exactly. That's it. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make when it comes to branding God's way?
I think that it starts kind of what we just talked about. I see a lot of people who, all right, I have an idea. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open an Instagram, I'm going to open a Facebook, I'm going to get an email, and I want a website. And they come to me and I'm like, well, what is the vision? Habakkuk 2 says, write the vision and make it plain. Well, I have a name, or I have an idea, or I have what I think I want to do. And so you're asking me as the brander or as the marketer to brand with blank pages, right? It's like I don't have clarity. And so one mistake is just moving ahead of, I guess it's more so just going with the trend of the pace of the entrepreneurship, where you're just chasing, I got to look like something before you actually have something. So I would just say, not adequately writing down, not adequately having a clear vision of what it is that you're birthing. Another thing is just getting caught up in, especially on Instagram, the visuals, that you lose sight of the content. You lose sight of, hey, I can post one time a week and provide value. I don't have to promote every single day where it's just the same flyer, or it's just something that you're putting out there because you feel like you have to keep up with the trend. Don't get me wrong, social media is ever changing. And of course, by the end of the day, there are new stories, but don't put more emphasis on the visuals than the vision, so that's like the biggest things that I see and I continue to see. And I often have to push back on my clients and say, hey, take a little more time, and come back to me when you have something a little more solid, because I won't be able to do my job effectively if you come to me with pieces of a vision, right? Because then it's like either I'm doing what? Inserting my own thoughts of what your vision should be? No, not going to get me in trouble with God, and just really pushing people to understand, like, God will give you, even if he doesn't give you the full thing, he gives you the next step,
Yes.
So those are like my big things that I see.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. And one of the things that gets us every time, because we are also so passionate about branding,
Right.
a client comes in with a vision, and you see the vision very clearly and you get excited about it, almost more excited than the client, and you're moving forward and you're doing things. And I've worked with lots of clients who, in this month, we're building their website and we got a great logo for them and we have their messaging. And by the end of the year, it's something completely different. And it just goes to show, like, if you don't take time on the vision, the visuals are great. And I am a customer of visuals. I will buy from you because you look good. Like, of course, I'm going to check reviews and all that, but you have your brand set together. You look great. And I'm all about that. But what really helps customers to buy in is that deep connection, like that relation that you have with them. So I totally.
Right. And ultimately building trust,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what roadblocks or obstacles did you have to face on the journey to building your brand, and how did you overcome them?
Phew, we'll be here all day. No. I think one of the obstacles that I am transparently still overcoming is scaling the business. Like, how do you go from, hey, I have a certain amount of clients a month, to you want to, of course, generate more income, but generate more impact at the same time. So how to scale efficiently. But I think in the beginning, one of my main roadblocks as well was just not spending as much time. Actually, this is still a little current. Not spending as much time on my business and my vision and the strategy, the standard operating procedures that I do on my client's vision. And so working tirelessly on the client's brand and the client's website and getting their photos taken, all of that the brand that God has given me to build kind of goes on the back burner. And I understand that, like, you can relate when you're doing referrals. It's great. It's like, hey, I don't have to put a lot into marketing because I'm getting referrals. But at the same time, I want to provide value to my clients. And so one of those were some of the major roadblocks for me, because there were many times that, like, I would be burnt out, and I would tell my husband I would have a creative coma. Like, you're like, I can't create anymore, because sometimes you're just going and going and going. And mental health is a part of your business plan. Okay, rest is a part of your business plan. Family time, like, not being a slave to my phone, that every time a client writes me or says something, I'm like, hey, because they're the client, so balance is what that ultimately that roadblock will be categorized as. Balance and adequate, just like delegation of roles too, like being able to relinquish control. And hey, if I can't do it, I need to bring on someone else. I need to, I've started doing contracts with other like creatives, so that way we can make bigger impact and it not just be me. So I would say those are my top ones. Some that I'm still working through.
Okay. So I'm hoping you could dig a little deeper into the delegation part, because if the entrepreneurs who are listening are like me, it's not even that delegation is hard. It's you have this fear that the person that you hand it to won't do it like you. So how did you, like, can you speak more to that piece?
Yes. So I'm still building on that. What I did do, though, was, for example, I have a videographer that I partner with and a photographer that I partner with. So, like, I can do video from my phone. I have a camera. I'm capable. But this is something that she does this is her business. So, that was one of the things where it was just like, okay, instead of me trying to take it on and say, I do video for clients, no. We're going to outsource, and the clients can now do a package and they get the branding from me and they get video from her, and same thing with the photography. I want to, in 2020, though, I do want to bring on an admin. So you can ask me again at the end of 2020 how that worked out. But as creatives, I know it's very hard, but I've really been stirred up to get standard operating procedures written. So that way I think that's the thing for us as entrepreneurs. When you start to get a system, write it down. So that way when you bring on another person, you just tell the person to refer to what you have, and hey, you'll see if they're a good fit or not. Yeah. Based off if they can follow directions or if they have creativity. So,
That's a surefire way to really trim the fat in terms of who's going to be a good fit for the company and who's not. Because one of the things I love when I start working with people is that they can just grasp the vision right away. And I too have what I started doing this year was doing voice recording. So having meetings on my own, but recording my meetings and just talking through the process of everything, checking emails, checking calendar, check the week done for our company goals, check the CRM for what we have going on in our accounts and things like that, just to making sure that you have some kind of a process, which I think would really help a lot of entrepreneurs delegate more easily, as long as they know they have a documented process that they could hand off. And then if the person has questions, they can just come back to them later instead of thinking, this person's not going to do it the way I'm going to do it. And then next thing you know, you have 10 jobs, you're marketing, HR, finance, and the project manager. So it makes sense to really start to document. And then when somebody comes on, you can hand things off.
Right. Because there's a difference between creating the vision and running the vision. It's like a chef, they make good cookies, but they may not be gifted in marketing the business and doing the finance for the business. So it's like, you got to know your lane,
exactly.
And automation is alive and well in 2020. So it's like, I've started with email. I want to get into more text, but I think that'll help too entrepreneurs who are listening. Like, if you're scared about or fearful about delegating to a person, just try automation first. So that way you can see, where your gaps are.
Yeah. I mean, artificial intelligence has grown leaps and bounds. You could almost have, your computer or your whole system managing the business while you sleep or eat or do whatever you need to do to make sure you're okay.
Right.
So,
right.
There's a lot of things to explore. It's just about, how fearful are people about going down that road. And then there's the issue of budget. Some of these things cost, they have a monthly fee. Can you afford it?
Right. Right.
There's so many solutions out there. I consider myself very resourceful. So when it comes to trying to find a solution that's going to help me do something, I could probably find something that's very low cost, if not free almost. So sometimes it's just about encouraging people to, search. What is it that you need? Do a search. It's out there. Whatever it is, it exists. There's really nothing left in this world to invent. Maybe there is, but I don't know. Everything is out there to help. So people need to
YouTube University.
That's right. Did you have any fears about being open with your faith in your business?
Yes, and yes. It's funny because you opened the podcast. You said that you came across Branding God's Way. And the backstory with that is that it was not called Branding God's Way. It was called Branding for Entrepreneurs. And when I started Boxbreaker officially as an LLC in June, the Lord specifically said I'll be working with faith-based visionaries. And that was a little hard for me at first because I came from a corporate background. And if we're just keeping it real, corporate clients and faith-based clients, 2 different budgets, 2 different things, okay? So I quit my job, I got married, and I started a business within the same 3 months. And so to me, I'm like, okay, Lord. So at first I was trying to do it as I'm going to have a corporate side and I'm going to have a faith-based side. And the Lord quickly showed me that's not what I said, because I would be on calls and it would turn into prayer or giving a word of encouragement or, hey, there's a scripture that came to mind. And now we're talking about what the Lord called them to do. And see, you can't do that on a corporate call. You might can, but they're going to be like, Keshia, what What's the marketing plan? Okay. We don't hear what the Lord said. And so before that, we launched, and the Lord woke me up one night at like 2 a.m. and he's like, branding God's way. And I'm like, that's great. So is that a book or something? Like, what are we doing? So I went on faith and I created the flyer, and they had the branding God's way. And that's the thing that it's funny, because the very thing you uncomfortable about, you don't want to do, is that sometimes the thing that God will use to lead you into different sectors and arenas. Because then after I launched, people kept reaching out to me like, wow, branding God's way, what does that mean? And I'm like, wow, did you know 6 months ago that it wouldn't have been branding God's way? So yes, but the more I do it, the more comfortable I get. And the Lord has shown me this effective branding, right? As one tip for entrepreneurs, like when you have effective branding marketing, when you get your target market, like your target audience, they always come to you, right? So it's like I've been getting the same type of client who are faith-based visionaries. They don't have Christian, because people say, well, does that mean I have to be a church, or does that mean I have to be a ministry? No. We are the visionary. We're serving the visionary as a Christian, but their businesses are brick and mortar, babysitters, cooking, podcasts, So to answer your question in a nutshell, yes, I did. And God has showed me in the last 6 months, like, that scripture when it says cast your net. I have casted my net and went forth with the branding God's way. And since then, I've seen so many people on Instagram mixing Christianity and marketing and branding. And I'm like, where were you a year ago? I didn't see you when I needed inspiration. So, yes, I'm here now.
It's the era for it. I mean, a lot of people are way bolder with their faith nowadays, and especially in business. I had another interview with Alex Miranda, and he was talking about how, God gave this to us. If you're an entrepreneur, anything that's allowed to happen is ordained by God. And so we need to be forefront about that and say, this is the business that God gave me, and I'm going to do it his way. Kind of like when you're talking about people want to just focus on the visuals and do things their own way instead of God's way. And it's like, actually, no, you're going to do it God's way because God needs to bring about something through you.
Right.
So being bold about your faith, sometimes that's the thing that draws the other visionaries to you to bring about this big vision that God has for all of us.
You're right. Someone lady just contacted me yesterday. She said, I like the fact that you're Christian. And I'm like, see, if you just wouldn't want the corporate, she would just said nothing.
Yeah. It's what's about you. I mean, every marketer will tell you that once you get into a niche, and I hate to call faith a niche.
I know.
God is life. But in this world, in this man-made world, well, I shouldn't say man-made, but in this world where it's like, man is, I guess, the focus. People don't really think about the fact that, it's really, faith is everywhere. God is everywhere. And you can't niche him, but a lot of times that's what man wants. If they want to see what's that different thing about you.
Yeah.
So it's good to bring that out.
You're right. Niching. Niche down.
So what would be your top 3 tips to entrepreneurs who want to brand God's way?
Brand God's way. Number 1, I would say know or discover what you have a burden for. So what God has burdened you with versus what you want to do. Know and discover that first, because that's going to set the tone for what it is that you're going to do. And if not, you'll find that you're going to be circling back because he'll be like, hey, you made a couple sales, but that's not what I said. So number 1, knowing that burden.
When you say burden, you mean the thing that keeps them awake at night?
Right. The thing that drives you, the thing that, it's like when I started Boxbreaker, I would get notes and visions of like working with entrepreneurs and doing sessions. And I'm like, that's not me, because it's not me, because I like to sit at home, So it's like, it's usually what you're uncomfortable with, let's be honest. And it's usually what, keeps you awake at night or stirs you up, where when you think about it, something in you it's really, Holy Spirit, but really just, awakening you. So that's number 1. Number 2, I would say, Habakkuk says, write down the vision and make it plain. And so let's write, whether it's on your iPhone, I'm an iPhone girl. So type my vision out, right, and make it plain as possible. So that way, and number 2 is dual. So once you have that revision and make it plain, now you can identify your vision carriers. So that way, when you work, and vision carriers are like your marketing people, your branding people, your photographers, your videographers, your copywriters, your accountants. But once you have it plain, then when you give it to those people, they can clearly see and they're able to maximize their gift. So that would be number 2, like write the vision and make it plain. Number 3, I would say develop systems where you're keeping yourself and your business accountable to God. So whether your systems are morning devotional for 10 minutes, weekly check-ins with a, accountability partner or a mentor or a spiritual figure, making sure you have the systems in place where your creativity is not being stifled. So for me, like going to different workshops, surrounding myself with different creatives who are in the same field, so I'm continuously sharpening my gifts. So develop a system, where you're continuously checking in with God and not going over into your lane, but staying in the lane that He has for you. And then also, coupling that with maintaining. How are you going to maintain education, atmospheres, reading? What are you going to do to maintain the vision?
Mm-hmm. Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
So that's all we have for today, but I want you to let everybody know where we can find you online.
Awesome. So I am on Instagram. My personal Instagram is Creatively Key, and my business Boxbreaker is under Boxbreaker Co., as well as our website is www.boxbreakerco.com. So if you are a faith-based visionary, I'd love to connect with you, say hi, say hey.
Mm-hmm.
I will say hey back, and we'll get on this journey together.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Keshia, for taking the time once again to chat with us. And hopefully, if there's anybody out there who is a faith-based visionary, I just have to echo what you were saying about follow what God is telling you to do, because you can try to avoid it, but it's really just going to lengthen your walk, lengthen your journey.
Yes.
So totally identify with that. And hopefully it would result in the do-over. So that's what I call when people go down a road and they start creating a brand, and by the end of the year, something completely different. If you just listen to God and do what He's telling you to do, as crazy as it may sound, you won't have that. And then you're spending lots of money in areas where you don't need to be spending money. So that's the only thing that I wanted to echo. But thank you again. And we will, I guess we'll follow up at some point, because we want to know about the assistant at the end of the year. And we want to get more insights from you at some point.
Okay, definitely. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Have an awesome day.
You too.